Sound has one problem. The moment it is created, it starts to disappear. A voice survives in the air for only a few seconds. Then it is gone. For centuries, humanity faced a seemingly impossible question. How do you preserve something you cannot even see? Then, in 1878, 31-year-old Thomas Edison unveiled a machine that seemed almost impossible. It had a cylinder, a hand crank, a diaphragm, and a metal tube. Turn the crank, speak into the machine. Moments later, it spoke your voice back. It was called the phonograph. For the first time in human history, sound had been captured. Edison thought the phonograph would replace stenographers, recording speeches and business meetings. The public had other plans. What did people really want from it? Music. From that point on, every new sound technology faced the same test. How well could it record music and play it back? Early phonographs stored sound on wax cylinders. But wax had two serious problems. Each cylinder held only about 2 minutes, and recordings could not be mass-produced. If a singer wanted to sell 100 copies, they might have to record the same performance 100 times. In 1888, American inventor Emil Berliner offered a different answer: a flat, wax-coated zinc disc. It was an early version of the record. The first records sounded worse than wax cylinders. But they had one enormous advantage. A master copy could be duplicated. That made records far cheaper to produce. For the next 20 years, Edison fought almost alone to defend the wax cylinder. But records were cheaper, easier to copy, and quickly becoming the new standard. Edison made another mistake too. His company rejected the jazz music younger listeners wanted. Record companies embraced it and won the next generation. In 1929, Edison closed his phonograph company and left the recording business. By then, records controlled the mainstream market, and radio introduced an even more disruptive idea. Why buy music at all when it could arrive through the air? But the search for a better way to preserve sound was far from over. Also in 1888, American engineer Oberlin Smith proposed magnetic recording. Sound would become an electrical signal. That signal would create a changing magnetic field. Record those changes on magnetized steel wire, and the sound could be saved. 40 years later, German engineer Fritz Fleumer replaced the steel wire with paper coated in magnetic powder. It worked. The basic idea of magnetic tape had arrived. Technology often follows the same path. First, prove that it works. Then make it smaller, cheaper, and easier to use. In 1963, the Philips company introduced a cassette small enough to fit in a pocket. The tape sat safely inside a plastic case with side A and side B. Each side could hold roughly 30 to 45 minutes of stereo music. Suddenly, ordinary people could record music, copy it, share it, and carry it with them. The compact cassette changed everyday listening. From the late 1960s through the 1990s, cassette tape entered its golden age. It was cheap, portable, and easy to record. For decades, it dominated everyday music listening. Then, in 1979, Sony pushed cassette culture even further. It removed the recorder and built-in speaker, then added stereo sound and headphones. The result was smaller and built for one job: listening. They called it the Walkman. Music left the living room. It followed people into the street, onto trains, and through the rest of the day. Headphones became an industry of their own, but vinyl refused to disappear. Many listeners still loved the ritual. Place the record on the turntable, lower the needle, and wait for the first sound. They valued the sound quality too. Still, vinyl had an obvious weakness. It was large, fragile, and difficult to carry. Then, in 1982, the CD arrived. Its biggest change was not simply better sound, it removed the old mechanical limits. No needle scraping across a record, no tape stretching with every play, no gradual loss of quality. Press a button, jump to any track, and the music started. Philips and Sony established the CD standard. Recorded sound had officially entered the digital age. Sony made CDs portable with the Discman, then tried to shrink digital discs with the mini disc, but the next revolution would not come from a better disc. It came from the internet. Before MP3, music always came attached to a physical object, a record, a cassette, or a CD. The music and its container were still the same thing. MP3 split them apart. Music became data, something that could be copied, transferred, and shared. Only one small player could carry hundreds, even thousands of songs. By 1998, portable MP3 players had reached the market. More people began replacing their Walkmans and Discmans. The hardware problem was being solved. But digital music created a much bigger problem. If songs could be copied almost freely, how would the music industry survive? For decades, record companies followed one simple model: make music, copy it onto a physical product, and sell it. The internet broke that model. In October 2001, Steve Jobs walked onto a stage and pulled a small device from his pocket. It was the iPod. Technically, it was not the first MP3 player, and it was not revolutionary on its own. What made it different was the system around it. With iTunes, users could buy legal digital music and manage their libraries in one place. Apple did not try to stop the digital age. It accepted the change, and then built new rules around it. The iPod quickly became one of Apple's biggest products. But the device that replaced it came from Apple too. In 2007, Jobs returned with another small device. This time, it was not just a music player. It was a phone, the iPhone. Once smartphones became part of everyday life, carrying a separate music player made less sense. The iPod had finished its job. The smartphone took over. Humanity had moved from saving sound to carrying it everywhere. So, did the old formats disappear? Not even close. After digital music took over, some older formats came back. Vinyl is the clearest example. People were not buying only the songs. They wanted the ritual: slide the record from its sleeve, place it on the turntable, lower the needle, and wait for the first sound. Digital music could not fully replace that experience. CDs and high-end players kept smaller groups of loyal collectors too. Magnetic tape found a second life as well. Some independent musicians returned to cassettes because they were cheap, flexible, and practical for small releases. More importantly, tape still stores data. It is inexpensive, lasts a long time, and does not need to stay connected to the internet. Companies, research institutions, and government agencies still use it to preserve important information. Decades ago, many people assumed tape would disappear, but some technologies do not truly die. They leave public view, then return with a different job. From wax cylinders that held only moments of sound to smartphones carrying thousands of songs, humanity spent more than a century freeing sound from distance and time. And perhaps that is the real lesson. Old technologies are not always what disappear. Sometimes, it is the way of life they once served.